Stories come in all shapes and sizes, much like the appendage we'll be talking about today in a D&D horror story series I'm affectionately dubbing The Gooner Files. Hi there, my name is Brian, and I'll be your bartender for today. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and check me out on Twitch if you ever want to learn a thing or two about voice acting, or just say hi while I'm live. First and foremost, for you older boys, girls, and anyone in between, gooning and gooner are slang terms these days that kids invented, as they do, to make themselves feel a little bit better about the constant fear of aging and becoming older. Gooning basically means anyone who has a long and drawn-out self-sexually pleasuring experience, while gooner boils down to someone who touches themselves. Crude, rude, stupid, but the context has been stated, so let's get into the story. Posted by Red Hot Owl. Gooner DM couldn't help themselves and derailed their entire game. The fact that this sort of thing has been an issue 2 out of 3 times I've attempted to join an online D&D game is kind of wild. At this point, I can't tell whether I'm just a prude, joined the hobby too late, have terrible luck, or if it really is that common of an experience. When I think of D&D, the last thing that comes to mind is dating drama and forced romance arcs. Sure, that stuff can be part of a game, but unless you specifically advertise the campaign as such, I feel like most players don't expect it to devolve into a poorly written smut novel. Oh yeah, these days people, especially the younger generations, have very limited concepts of tact, filtering, or even consent. People are trying harder to appeal to a niche of what they think is funny, which is basically taking the crude humor of days gone by and applying it to hobbies with a new and much more immature spin. It sucks, and it ain't fun for anyone new to a hobby like D&D. So, I'm sorry you ever had to deal with that. From power fantasies to sexual fantasies, leave that crap out unless everyone consents. The first time I tried to join an online D&D game, I already posted about, but to sum it up, it never actually got going because the DM basically decided my halfling wasn't hot enough. Apparently, that mattered a lot, because she planned for everyone to get flirted with at some point. The second attempt was uneventful. Scheduling just didn't work out. I guess third time wasn't the charm, as it's probably been my worst experience yet. Once again, at the start, everything looked fine. The group seemed beginner-friendly, had a healthy mix of RP and combat, and most players were European, which was a big plus for scheduling. The DM seemed nice enough. At least, no glaring red flags or anything. They did come across as a bit Tumblr-ish, no offense to anyone, I honestly don't know how else to describe it, constantly gushing over fictional ships and character designs, but I didn't think much of it. I've played with people like that before who were still perfectly capable of handling serious, mature characters when it mattered. Also, I'm not sure if I've mentioned this explicitly in any of my previous stories, but as an ace person, I've learned to remind myself that just because that kind of stuff doesn't interest me, it doesn't mean I get to judge anyone for enjoying it. Fun fact, an ace person is short for asexual, someone who experiences little or no sexual attraction to others. The more you know. This time, I went with a tiefling druid, kind of an odd combo, I know, but I had a solid backstory in mind. The DM even encouraged it since the game wasn't supposed to be min-max focused. We actually made it past session 0, which was already a rare victory. I won't bore you with the details, but things kicked off with a pretty standard setup. The town where we all met got attacked, we fought our way out, and we ended up tasked with delivering a dying NPC's important message to a relative up north. Nothing groundbreaking, but I liked it. For the next week or so, things went smoothly. Sure, the main goal was pretty straightforward, but to the DM's credit, there were enough side dungeons and encounters to keep things interesting. And those quiet camping moments were a good chance for the PCs to get to know each other. And then it happened. The plot twist that changed the entire vibe of the campaign. After accidentally rescuing what turned out to be some powerful hellspawn from its prison, we were forced into a contract that basically assigned each of us our own personal devil patron. Think Mizora from Baldur's Gate 3, who granted certain buffs. Honestly, not a bad hook. And since my character was a tiefling who had rejected his infernal side by embracing druidism and self-isolation, Having that connection forced back into his life was satisfying from a narrative standpoint. Until it wasn't. As the game went on, the DM kept casually reminding everyone that our assigned devils were specifically succubi. Nearly every single one of us responded with a collective, "Okay," and just continued playing. I've been around long enough to see exactly where this was going, but I still tried to give them the benefit of the doubt, especially since the rest of the players seemed pretty chill. Now, if it's not obvious yet, the DM's grand vision was that we'd slowly become corrupted by our lustful desires and eventually give in to it. And apparently, lust was the only vice worth exploring. No greed, wrath, pride, ambition, nothing, just that. Now, in theory, even that could work if handled with restraint and maturity, but it quickly became apparent that this wasn't a psychological corruption arc. Oh, it was basically turning into one big fetish session for the DM. Everything came to a screeching halt when we found ourselves in a situation where we were about to die, and another player, a female kitsune wizard, was encouraged to draw more power from her patron to save us. And by encouraged, I mean the DM basically railroaded her into a, "you kind of have to." So she did, under the understanding that there would be a price to pay later. Later came that same night at camp, when her succubus patron manifested and announced that payment was due. Right there, in front of the entire party. The DM then proceeded to describe how we could all see the outline of a certain horse-like appendage begin to form between her legs. And that was that. Almost all of us, except one player who more or less called us snowflakes, collectively noped out right then and there. The DM tried to backpedal and say it wasn't mandatory, but come on! If that had been the only weird moment, maybe someone could have brushed it off as a lapse in judgment. But this had been building for several sessions, ever since the succubus plotline was introduced. Shout out to the 3 people from that game who stayed in touch and invited me to another D&D group they swear is at least normal. Here's hoping I finally get to experience a full campaign. Here's the biggest TLDR that you'll ever get that doesn't even begin to describe the crap involved in this story. DM derailed their own campaign with increasingly blatant fetish content, and most of the group leave as a result. For those thinking, why not try a local group? Oh, trust me, I'd love to, but there aren't any nearby I could realistically join. Any that do exist are likely exclusive friend groups I'm unlikely to run into. Oh, for a start, I'd like to apologize on the behalf of every single D&D nerd and Pathfinder dork out there who would love to find a group, make friends, or otherwise just enjoy a good time RPing with some random people. That kind of behavior from a DM is absolutely garbage and would put off anyone with any kind of self-respect or maturity. To stop all the nonsense involved with springing sexual content on players like that, a proper DM would speak to their players beforehand and explain the nature of the game, while tweaking things so everyone wins and no one loses. Want some NSFW content? Cool, we'll put it a bit in. If it gets too much or otherwise is too involved, we'll do more fade to black content rather than describe anything in detail. It's all about personal choice, boundaries, and exploring what you enjoy while being strong enough to say no when needed. Now don't worry, your emotions and feelings matter. You ain't no snowflake because you don't want to seek out the throbbing horsecock of naked cowboys past or anything. So, from me to you, we'll be closing our doors to the tavern for this evening with one beautiful sentiment to take away from this. Consent is key. Come back anytime. We're looking forward to your next stay.